here to the positions on the chart. At that point, it's a really good time to start in on the documentation. So you may have here or there documented some of your processes or pulled some things from the library and they've been documented and kind of edited them and made them your own. But at the point that you've got TouchStone organized fully, so lists here, positions, and then these two come together by the listing of the job, creating of the job descriptions. Once you get to that point, it's then a good time to think about your plan for documenting. So a good way to look at it is by position on the org chart. So you can start to think, what are the high priority positions? That's one factor. Who's your next hire? What position is your next hire? That's another factor to consider. What available resources do you have? So other people in the organization that would be good at documenting. So thinking of all of your different priorities, your strategic plan or growth for your business, decide which positions to start in on, first, second, third, and then literally go to the job description, look at the processes, and put them in order of priority for what you want to do first, second, third. So this is all drag and drop. So I'd put these in kind of the order of how I want to start the documentation. Now all your processes, if you haven't been starting with the documentation yet, they're either going to be blue or red. These are black because they're completed. For documenting. So the first template or tool is called a work plan, and it's right here at the top. So work plans are the tool that you're going to use the most. Every process in the end should have a work plan. There are some situations where a process has kind of an overall checklist that's like a flow of different processes. And if that's the case, there could be just one checklist in the process. But probably 95% of the time, every process will have a work plan. So the work plan is the overall step-by-step set of instructions with a lot of detail on how the process is done, the instructions on how to get the result. The next tool down is called a checklist. And a checklist is primarily for quality control. It ensures that the steps of the process have been completed. Next tool down is called a script. And a script is for documenting a conversation. So anytime there's a verbal interaction in the process, frequently asked questions, anything that needs to be explained verbally, then you can use the scripting template to kind of document that conversation. Next tool down is called Uploaded Files, and this tool allows you to take documents, anything that's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or PDF, and upload it to the process. So if there's a manual or a PowerPoint presentation, an Excel spreadsheet, anything like that that's in one of these file formats that is needed in the process, then you can upload it directly to the process. Next tool down is called a form. And it's basically a tool that allows you to put in columns and rows, like you see here. You can cut and paste forms in that exist currently, or you can build your own. The form tool is also like a blank Word document. So if this form wasn't here, this would just be like a blank text field. So you can use the form tool to write a letter, or put in paragraphs of information, or make notes. Next tool down is called a policy note. And this allows you to document essential rules or policies about the process. So anything legal or compliance or safety related that needs to really stand out to employees, you can put it into the policy template. Next tool is our video uploader. So this allows you to take training videos, any video related to the process, and upload it directly to the process. And then audio is the same thing, except for it's a flat audio file instead of video. So these are all of the tools or templates that are available. We're going to start with this training session discussing work plans and checklists. And then next week we're going to finish it out with the rest of the process tools. So just a little bit about the navigation of this screen, the process tools screen. When I click the process, I'm going to be taken right to the title, and it's always in this blue box. So if I'm on the 4 functions list here, and I select a process, I'm immediately going to be taken right to what we call the details of the process, which is this box. If you want to edit the title of the process, it's all click to edit. So you're going to click right here, and the process title opens for you to edit. Underneath the title is what we call the objective, and this is usually a sentence or a phrase which defines the process. So this explains what is in this process to generate referrals. Some methodology I've seen people use is the how-to. So the objectives are always how to generate referrals in a consistent, profitable way. So you can use the how-to if you like. You can just start it as a basic sentence. But really, this objective is supposed to define what's in it, what's going to be in this process, so that when anyone looks at this, they're always going to be able to see the objective and know what's inside of this process. This is also click to edit. So if I want to click this to edit it, change it, hit cancel or save. Underneath the title and the objective is this box, which turns the process title black. And we talked about this a bit in the 4 functions webinar. The color coding on the 4 functions, there's a legend that shows you what the colors mean. But basically, red means not started. There's nothing inside of it. There's no tools in it. Blue means there's something inside of it. It's in process, or it's being documented. And then you turn it black when you're finished with the documentation. So when you're done with the documentation of every process, it's been reviewed, it's good to go, then you fill in this box right here in the details screen, and it will turn the process title black. This next button below will put the process in the public folder. So there will be a webinar in 2 weeks on more about the public folder. It exists here on the home screen. Processes that go in the public folder are meant to be company-wide information. So they're not the accountability of just 1 or 2 or even 3 positions. They're company-wide. Like everybody needs to have access to this. Everyone needs to be trained in it. Everyone needs to use it. Right here at the top of the screen, when I'm on the details of the process right here, I'm going to see this icon that says link to job description. So this, like I showed you last time, I think, allows you to see which job descriptions this process has been linked to. So I can see in orange that it's on the manager of marketing and sales, and it's also on the salesperson. From this view, I can link it and unlink it. So if I select this, it's going to take this process off. Now it's not on this position anymore. And if I select it again, I choose strategic or tactical section and hit link, then it puts it back on the job description. So this is just a quick help tool for once you've built your job descriptions in their entirety, you can see that you've got processes on the right job descriptions. This little navigation bar is kind of handy. It's called a breadcrumb trail. This will always show you where the process is on the 4 functions list. So remember, the master list is here. Then we've got org chart and all the processes linked to different job descriptions on the org chart. So this referral development process I can access through the 4 functions list, or I can access it through any job description it's on. But when I select it, I can always see both. I can see it where it is in the 4 functions list by this trail right here, and then link to job description, I can always see what job description it's on. So let's talk about work plans. So a work plan is basically a set of tasks, a written description of tasks. The work plan shows the steps of the process. Most processes are task-oriented, so there's a movement in them. There's a to-do. There's an action that's taken. So the work plans show each of these steps or tasks or actions. The tasks go in sequential order, so there should be the first task, the second task, the third task. Underneath the task section, there's a second section of the work plan called expectations. So the tasks are the to-do items. They're the steps that are taken. And then the expectations are more just general things that need to be known about the work plan. So it could be timing, could be why something's important, could be when something's done, anything subjective that's good to know. Sometimes the expectations kind of explain going the extra mile in the work plan. So something that someone would do if they're really taking great care in doing it. So the best way to think of the expectations is after you've documented your tasks, just consider, is there anything special about how this is done? Anything extra? Any quality? Anything you need to emphasize? Sometimes there are tasks in processes or in work plans, and they seem arbitrary to the technician, to the person following them, but they're not to the business overall. They're essential. So sometimes explaining that in the expectations, like why this particular task has to be done this way, can be useful for training, and it can give the employees some context. So let's talk about how to make a work plan and how to use the functionality, and then I'll discuss more about what makes a good work plan and how to document one thoroughly. So you can see inside this process there are two work plans here already, these two. So this is the title, and then if there is a work plan in the process, they'll be listed underneath. So this is the title, again, of a checklist, and then here's a checklist that's inside. It's already been built. Here's the title script. Now there are 3 scripts in this process. If I want to make a work plan, I just select the title. So all the tools are the same. If I want to make a checklist, I just select the title. Script, same thing. So once I select the title of the work plan, I put in the name of the work plan. Try to keep these names short and specific. Referral development clients, referral voicemail messages. So keep them a title as much as possible. If you're writing a sentence or even a phrase, you're starting to describe what it is as opposed to making it a specific title. Down here in the objective, again, this is the purpose of the process. Why does it of the work plan? Why does it exist? What is it here to do? This should be no more than a sentence or a phrase. If you start to write a paragraph, that's the objective, then you're starting again to describe the details which belong inside of the work plan. Then I hit Create Work Plan. If you see this error message right here, it's telling me that I already have a work plan in TouchStone. Name this. So this is my demo account, so this doesn't surprise me. So if you ever see this error message, this is letting you know that this title already exists and you're about to create a duplicate. So you can click on this link and go right to that work plan that has the same title. And when you see it, you have a decision to make. One is, does it already exist? And if it does, then don't create it twice. If it does already exist, and for some reason you need to reference that inside of this process that you're in, then you can create a hyperlink to it, which I'm going to show you how to do. So never duplicate things. The way that TouchStone deals with information that needs to come from one process in order to finish another is by hyperlinking. So we would link to that work plan inside of the current work plan. So change the title or decide to create a hyperlink and then hit Create. So now I've got 3 work plans inside this process, and you see all 3 of them listed here. These 2 that were already there and this one that we just created. These work plans can be reordered, so I can take these and drag them up and drag them down. If there are multiple work plans in a process, sometimes it's good to put them in workflow order, like put them in order of how they happen. If if that's the case. Sometimes they don't go, there is no order. Like here, this is a work plan on how to generate referrals from clients, and then this is a work plan on how to generate referrals from alliances. So these don't go together in any way. They're all around generating referrals, so they're all inside this referral process. So in this case, I could put these in alphabetical order, but just know that you can take these and reorder them, move them up and move them down. So if I was going to start to build this work plan, the first thing I do is add a task. I click Add Task, and then I click Open the Tasks field. So this is Task 1. So the first step, and then I save it. So when you're building a work plan, you want to think first step, second step, third step. I go Add Task again, click Open the Task field, and then this is Task 2. And then I save it. So think step by step. The template, the work plan template, kind of forces you into the step-by-step nature of good documentation. So it's forcing you to add another task. And then this is task 3. And it's because there is a good protocol with documentation, which also lends itself to good training, where you want to think in short, specific tasks or steps. So we've intentionally done the work plan this way so that it makes you go 1 step, 2 step, 3 step. This way, whoever is documenting, whether it's you or another employee or a manager, you're all going to be doing it the same way. You're all going to think first task, second task, third task. If you have any work plans now where every task, like it's a big, huge paragraph of information all in one task, then think about redoing that. When I see that, I know that someone's just kind of gotten lazy and cut and pasted a whole paragraph into one task and said, boom, it's done. Well, it's sloppy, first of all. Secondly, it doesn't follow the template so that everybody's looks the same. But most importantly, it's very difficult to train someone in documentation like that. It's kind of like reading a book and trying to figure out what to do. So think step by step. Once a task is saved, if you want to edit it, you just click the text and it opens for you to edit. When you have a task open, you can't click to another task. So you're going to get this error message that says you have to save, cancel, or delete the task that you're on before you can move on to another one. This toolbar is very similar to Microsoft Word. All these functions mean the same thing. If you are cutting and pasting in documentation from Word, use this paste from text paste button, plain text, because what will happen is it will then copy and paste the text in 10-point Arial, which is what we're looking at now when you type directly into a task. If you don't do that, you're going to be cutting and pasting in your Word text, which might be a different font or a different font size. And then the fonts and the sizes all kind of look different when things are cut and pasted, which again makes it look a little more confusing and just messy. So paste in with flat text. That's going to remove any characters, and it's also going to keep the font and font size consistent. Inside the toolbar, there's is the hyperlink tool you'll find right here. So I'm going to show you an example of a hyperlink before we get into that. Oops. So these are hyperlinks, these blue links that are throughout. This is what they look like. And the hyperlinks will hyperlink between one thing and another inside of TouchStone. And they will also allow you to hyperlink to anything that lives on the Internet. So anything that has a URL, whether it be another web page or website or Google Docs, whatever it is, as long as it has a URL, TouchStone will link to it. So you want to use a hyperlink when you want to reference something else. You want to reference a website or say, go here to find this information. Or items inside a TouchStone. Here's a letter right here, which is an uploaded file in this process right here. And we're saying, to prepare for the appointment, you will need this letter, you will need the form, and we're creating links right to them. Now let's say that this letter was not only sent out in the referral process, but it was also sent out in 4 other processes. This letter lives here inside of this process, but I could hyperlink it from here to whatever other processes it was used in. So that's another purpose of the hyperlink. If you have a tool inside of one process and it's used inside of other processes, then you create a link to it. That way you're not duplicating things. So we don't have this referral letter uploaded in TouchStone in 5 different places. We only have it in one place, and then we link it to everywhere else it's used. And the reason for that is if I go to update this letter, I only have to update it in one place, and then all the links that it's linked to are automatically preserved and updated. So don't create duplicates, rather hyperlink. You can also show where one process ends and another one begins, or when you need information from one process to finish another. So here is an example of that. So in task number 13, we enter leads into the CRM. So entering leads into the CRM is a whole other process. And people enter leads into the CRM in lots of different processes and in lots of different situations. So we wouldn't want to have to create the steps for how to do that inside of this referral process and then also inside of the sales process and the lead qualification process and everywhere else. Because then we're just going to have duplicate tasks everywhere, and if we have to change the CRM or update it, then all those tasks have to be updated in lots of different places. So rather what you would do is create a process, calling it how to enter leads into the CRM. This, in fact, is a process in running the business in the IT function called CRM how-tos, and then inside of it I've got, or should have, all the work plans on how to use the CRM. And this is a step-by-step for how to enter leads. And I've just linked it to this task. Okay, so let's go back. So to create a hyperlink, you highlight the link word, so whatever word you want to become the link word, and then you go hit the hyperlink tool, and it brings up your link types. If I hit the drop down here, I'll see all the different link types. So the first option I have is called an external link. So this would be something that lives outside of TouchStone. So another website, another web page, another web tool. TouchStone will link to other web tools. It will link to QuickBooks Online. It'll link to your CRM if it's online, Google Docs. You just have to be logged into that other tool in order for it to go right to the page that you're linking to. If you create a hyperlink to a page inside of your QuickBooks CRM or your QuickBooks Online, and you're not logged into it, then it's going to stop you at the password and username and password screen. So here, type in the entire URL. So I usually go up to the tool that I want to link to, and I just copy the address, the full address. This will take you right to the page that you're looking for. And then you paste it right into the URL screen and hit insert. All these other link types are things that are inside of TouchStone. So I could link from this task to a job description. I could link from this task to a whole other process. Or I could link from this task to another tool inside of another process. So process is the whole process. It goes right to that whole process, right to the details screen. A work plan would go to a specific work plan and so on. So when I select one of these link types, I then see a drop-down of all, in this case, all the processes I have in TouchStone so far in alphabetical order. If you're looking for something that starts with a T, you can type in T and then scroll down. So when you have a lot of processes, it's a quick way to navigate and find what you have. So I would choose the process I want to link to and hit insert, and then TouchStone creates the link. It doesn't work until you save it. So you have to save the task, and then the link will work. Another cool feature inside of this work plan is the image uploader, which is this tree icon at the end here. So images are great for documentation. Anytime that you can take a picture of how something's supposed to look, it's fantastic. Because then you don't have to do as much work describing the steps, because you can show it. So the image uploader will upload JPEG files, GIF files, or PNG files. So you take a screenshot or a picture, you hit choose file, you find that picture, and you hit insert. And then the picture will appear in the task. There's a lot of great snipping tools out there that allow you to take screenshots. I use this one above here called Jing. It's free. It's the free version of Snagit. And you can take pictures. I'm just taking a screencast of like the corner of the screen right here. I hit capture image. Then I can like draw arrows and say, you know, look at this. I can put in text. And then I save it. I usually drop these on my desktop, and I overwrite the next one when I do it. And then I'm not saving massive files on my desktop. It's just overwriting the next one. And I go here to the tree icon, hit choose file, choose the image, hit open, hit insert, and then the image will pop in. It looks like I chose the wrong one, but that's how you do it. You can also use, if you've got a PC, you can use this Snipping Tool, this one down here, which is part of your operating system. So you just highlight what it is that you want to take a picture of. Again, you hit save and insert it. Also, Macs have great snipping options in their operating system as well. I don't know what the one's called, but I know it's as good as ones that you would have to buy. What I also like about Jing is that it does screen captures. So this is the free version again. So if I hit this little icon that says capture image, oh shoot, wrong one. Let's do it again. So instead of capture image, you say capture video, and it's going to give you a 1, 2, 3 countdown. And then if I'm speaking into my computer, then it's recording my voice, and I click here and move my mouse around, and it's capturing this video. In the free version, you can see up here that it'll give you 5 minutes, which is a nice time frame for a screen capture video. So when you're finished, when you finish the video, it has a little play button. You can save it and then go down to the video uploader down here, which we'll talk about more next week, and upload it. So anytime you can have an image, it's do it, definitely, for your documentation. All right, I'm going to save this. These tasks can all be reordered just by dragging and dropping. So I'm just dragging and dropping to change the order. To add expectations, it's the same thing. Just click Add Expectation, click Open the Task field, and type in the expectation. Save, and then I've got my expectations. To delete a work plan, you hit this little black X here. You're going to have one chance to change your mind. If I say OK, then that work plan is gone. So all the tools work the same way with this toolbar row above here. The black X is always delete. So when you're on a black X, make sure that you know what's behind you that you want to delete. Make sure you actually want to delete that, and then say OK, and that tool will be gone. So let's talk about this toolbar row here for a second. The first icon here will take a work plan and turn it into a checklist. So this is kind of a nice feature if you've got a step-by-step work plan and you want to turn it into a quality control checklist just with one click and say OK, then that work plan's just been converted into a checklist. So we'll talk more about checklists in a minute here, but that's what this particular icon does. It takes work plans and turns them into checklists. Next toolbar item over, this icon will allow you to move a process tool, so any one of these over here, out of one process and into another. So you can take any tool from any process and move it into another process. You would do this if you built a work plan, say, inside of one process, and then you realized, oh no, I really want that inside of this other one, then you would move it. Another reason you'd use this is if you want to combine two processes. So maybe you made your process titles too narrow, like you created a process for referral development strategic alliances, and then you created another process for referral development clients. And then you heard me say combine like results, and you decide to combine them. You can take the tools out of one and move them into the other. Another place I see this used a lot is if people pull library processes. So you take a process from the library, and there are some tools inside of it that you like and others that you don't, but you have your own process for that. So say it's like a recruiting process, and you like some of the stuff that we have, but you have your own recruiting process. You can take tools out of the library processes that you like and move them into your own process, and then just delete the library process. So to move, you just click this icon. You're going to hit the drop down here. These are all my sub-functions from the 4 functions list. So I'm hunting for the process I want to move this into. So let's say it's in the sales sub-function. And now I'm seeing a list of all the processes inside of the sales sub-function. I would choose the process I want to move this into and then hit save. And then TouchStone moves it. This icon here is for exporting. So you're going to see this icon all over TouchStone, as well as the delete. These 2 buttons have become familiar, and you'll see them everywhere inside of TouchStone. This icon means the same thing everywhere you see it. If I click it, it shows me the export features. So anything in TouchStone will allow you to print it directly to your printer. You can export it to Word, you can export it to a PDF, or you can email it. So these features allow you to take any of the tools on this screen and take a copy of them out of TouchStone and move them to one of these other formats. Okay. So let's talk for a second about good methodology for building work plans. So number 1, you want to get your titles right. Once you've got your process title in, referral development, I then want to decide what work plans are going to be in this process. So I've thought of my process itself, I've defined it, and then I'm going to consider, is there more than one work plan in this process, or is there just one? If there's more than one workflow or more than one thing that happens within the process, then you'll need multiple work plans. Like in this example, a step-by-step for generating referrals from alliances and a step-by-step for generating referrals from clients. These are different tasks, but all about the same thing. Let's look at another example. So here in running the business, it's very common to have a finance processes, accounts receivable, accounts payable, deposits. Screen is super slow. So inside of a process called accounts payable, like this one, you can have multiple work plans with everything related to payables. So here you'll see I've got a work plan for how to create general invoices. I've got a work plan on how to create special invoices. Everything related to paying bills on time. I've got a work plan here on how to make credit card and ACH payments, check payments, bank deposits. So again, this is an example of how to put in work plans and think through the different work plan titles, which would be necessary inside of that process. So if you've built your 4 functions list, and then this is new information to you, you might want to sit and think about your different process titles and decide, can some be combined? Does that make sense? Another example is over here in human resources. So there's a process for recruiting, and everything related to recruiting is inside of this process. And then there's a process for interviewing. So once a candidate has been decided that that candidate is going to get an interview, then this process starts up. I would think if you combined these 2 things, it would be too much for one process. So there's a bit of an art to this. So think about the result. The result is to find qualified candidates and screen them to the point that you're ready to interview them. Then the next result is to interview them and decide if you're going to hire them. So that's interviewing. There's also a technique like this is demonstrating. So this is hiring administration. So inside of here, we have things related to recruiting and hiring that are done by the administrative department. So these 2 are theoretically done by, maybe an HR person, or it could be the managers of the company do the recruiting and the interviewing, depending on how big your company is. This process is everything related to the administrative side of hiring. So if you've got a process where there are workflows in it or potential work plans in it that are all done by a specific person or department, then that would be a reason to have two separate processes. So this is, again, is hiring administration. This is like job applications, checking references, doing drug testing, educational check, driving check, things like that. Rejection letters that are sent out, acknowledgement letters. So all of this, again, done by an administrative position. And then everything that's inside of the recruiting and hiring processes is done by management or someone actually doing the hiring. Now you could combine all of this, but then when you go to link the process to a job description, you're getting into a situation where everyone sees all the tools inside that process. You can always, in the title of the work plan, say done by admin or done by management. But if the process is truly two specific things, kind of like this is, recruiting and hiring and administration, then sometimes it's better to break it apart and have this linked to the administration person's job description and this linked to the hiring person or the manager's job description. Sometimes there are situations where it's useful for one position to know what the other is doing. So even if there are tools like inside of accounts payable, some done by a manager, some done by the bookkeeper, some done by the CFO, if for whatever reason nothing's confidential in there and it's useful for one position to see what the other is doing, then you can put all of the work plans related to this inside of one process. Like I said, there's a bit of an art to this. Some of it is more boilerplate in general because it's kind of good in-process documentation. It's common, like in HR and human resources and finance. There's a lot of suggestions we can give you that we know work well because we've seen them this way before. Our library is constructed that way. So inside the library, you'll see examples of things that we've combined or are not combined. When you get into your operational processes, that's where it kind of gets industry specific, and some of it is by preference. If you're having a question about whether something should be combined into one process and in separate work plans or if it should be separated, you can always give us a call and we'll give you an opinion on that. If a process only has one work plan, then oftentimes the title of that work plan is the same as the title of the process itself. So remember this edit process details. I can see this is the title, referral development, and it's got an objective. If this process was only going to have one work plan in it, there was only one workflow, one series of tasks for what is done, then the title of the work plan would be referral development, and the objective would probably be the same. So don't try to make your work plan titles different if they don't need to be. If it's just one work plan, put the process title the same. If there are multiple work plans, then obviously the titles are going to be different because you're going to put something into that title which says why it's different than the next work plan. When documenting processes, here's some work plans. Here's a few tips. Number one, you want to think, like I said before, in specific steps, kind of like you're seeing here. If there is more detail within a task that needs to be articulated, default to bullets and sub-bullets like you're seeing here. So this is categorize the existing list into potential prospects. In order to do that, you need to choose all of those existing and past. You need to divide them into 4 groups. When you're dividing them into 4 groups, you need to contact 25%. So you see I'm building it in an outline. If you get into a habit or your writing style is one of paragraphs or you're very descriptive with your writing, you're thinking in stories and you want to tell a story about how to do it, try to adjust that and think of more specific, clean steps. A lot of times I get people telling me, well, this work plan is so complicated, it's so difficult, there's no way to explain how to do it. It's done. They're not saying it's done differently every time because hardly anything is done differently every time. There is some consistency to almost everything. So when you feel that way, it's because in your mind you're seeing it in this story that goes this way and that way and maybe this and maybe that. So try to get a clear mind about it and think in specific steps. If you can document the specific, clear, delineated steps, then you can fill in the detail after that. Move more towards the bulleted outline approach. If you see anything that is a paragraph in a task, immediately think to yourself, how could this be an outline instead of a paragraph? It helps with getting the documentation written, first of all, but primarily it helps with training. Because if you try to train someone and they're reading a story or they're reading paragraphs and paragraphs of information, it's harder to remember. It's harder to go back and reference. It's harder to find where you were and then decide where you made a mistake. It's just a style of documentation that doesn't work very well. It's not very practical. If you're dealing with a very complicated process, sometimes it helps to get out sticky notes and write the first step, the second, the third, and lay them out on the table and then adjust them around. I do this in TouchStone itself. I'll build kind of like basic milestone steps of the work plan, and then I'll go back and try to fill out all the details. You can do the same thing in TouchStone, but if you're more visual and you want to see it kind of in sticky notes, the sticky note thing and even flow charts work well if you are creating something that's brand new, if you're documenting something that doesn't exist and you're trying to innovate it or create it for the first time. But rudimentary processes that are happening the same way and people have been doing that work for a while, getting them right into TouchStone through the tasks is the way to go. If you're dealing with a very complicated process again, try to think of the rudimentary pieces of that process. We tend to focus on the variables, the if-thens, the maybe this, maybe that, or I do this differently every time. The variables are what consume people. The variables are what are extremely hard to train other people in. The variables of any work are where experience comes in, because you've done it this way and that way and the wrong way and the right way, and then you've learned over time how to do it and how to kind of navigate your way through something that could be complicated. The benefit of documentation is that you can get through those variables, think of the rudimentary steps, think about what is rudimentary. If there are if-thens in it, how does it toggle back and forth, if this, then that? Once the basic rudimentary part of the work plan is done, then you can start to think of the variables. You can start to think of the if-thens. I saw a work plan the other day. I thought it was super clever. It was an engineering work plan on how to, I don't even remember, but it was something that was complicated. So they had done the tasks in an outline bulleted, lots of detail. There are a lot of links to other things. Then at the bottom of the work plan, they had done some if-thens. So they had said, if this situation happens in task number 7, then do this. It may not happen. It only happens X percentage of the time, but if it does, this is the way you handle it. Then if that does happen, then try this. So it was kind of like a decision tree almost within the work plan. So it might be that the rudimentary part of the work plan, tasks 1 through 10, pretty much go that way most of the time. But if you do get into different factors that may or may not happen, then this is what you would do. When I look at work plans, one of the biggest things that I see right off the top is that there's usually not enough detail. Sometimes there is too much detail, but most of the time there's not enough. That's like the primary feedback that I give. So here's a way of determining whether your work plans have enough detail. Every process that you document, every work plan, is documented for a certain audience. So there's an employee type or position that you're writing it for. So you want to consider the minimum qualifications of that employee, of that position. So if you think about your organization chart, and this actually should be in your recruiting processes. So you're recruiting inside of running the business. There should be a listing of every position from the org chart and what the minimum qualifications of that position are. That's the kind of information that's useful in hiring. You know, it's useful in interviewing, so you can kind of interview to those qualifications. You can even test to see if they have those qualifications. You can do background checks, reference checks, school checks, and all of that should be in your recruiting processes. So from those minimum qualifications forward is what you're documenting for. So if I'm hiring a salesperson to do this, and I have checked references, and it's required that they have 2 years of sales experience, that they have a bachelor's degree, and that they know how to use Microsoft Office products, say. So I've trained to those I've tested to those minimum qualifications when I hired the person. Then all of my processes that that person is responsible for doesn't need to talk about basic sales techniques, or doesn't need to explain how to open a Word document, or doesn't need to explain how to turn on the computer or how to log into something. This person should already know that. So from that point forward, though, it's got to fully explain how to do the work from that point forward. There has to be enough detail in it that that person with those minimum qualifications could follow the work plan tasks and know what to do. They may need some on-the-job training with the documentation. They may need to practice it. There needs to be training involved, but the documentation itself has done the best job possible to be able to allow that person to read and study it like a textbook and know what to do. If you have an entry-level position on your org chart where you're trying to get not necessarily super qualified people and put them into your company and train them up, then your processes need to do a better job or a good job of training. Because if the lower the minimum qualifications are, the better the documentation needs to be. The best process-dependent businesses, the ones that are worth the most money, have documentation like that. They have documentation and training in place where they can take someone with the least amount of qualifications and put them into their processes, train them up, give them the experience, and grow them within the company. That's dynamite documentation, because it's the asset of the business. So think about this minimum qualification idea. It also works for higher level positions like doctors' offices or even this engineering company. They hired people right out of who have civil design engineering degrees and certain years of experience. So we're not going to be writing processes on how to be an engineer like that. They know that. That's their minimum qualifications. But they have to document the way they do it and the way they want it done. Okay, let's talk about checklists next. So checklists are quality control tools. So a checklist is a listing of tasks sometimes or items that need to be accomplished. So after you've built your work plans, if you think this process needs quality control, or this process needs verification that these tasks have been done, or for management purposes, we need to know that these steps were taken. For management purposes and quantification and evaluating key indicators, we need to know how many times this has been done. So any kind of question like that, whether it be verification that for the employee because it's very complicated, and for the manager to know that certain tasks were done so that other positions can then see that those were done so that they can do their part, or if it's for internal management reporting and you need a checklist, then build one. You can take a work plan and turn it into a checklist like I did before, or you can build a checklist just by clicking the checklist title, putting in the name of the checklist, just like we did the work plans. It works exactly the same way. Checklists are meant to be checked off or used as they're done. So if you build a checklist and it's really not your intention to make sure that it's being followed and used, then you really don't need the checklist. The work plan would suffice. So what I'm saying is if the checklist exists, you've built a checklist, then you have to back it up. First of all, there has to be a good reason for it, reason that that the checklist exists, but then also managers need to make sure that they're being used. So when checklists are created and they're implemented and employees start using them, if there's not a manager there reviewing them every week, looking to see if they were done, commenting on them, using them in some way, then over time the employee is just going to not care and stop doing it. And it's not just because employees are being insubordinate, it's because they're not seeing the value of it. It's not being explained to them. The manager's not at least running a report and saying, let me see all the checklists that Sally did today or this week, and then sending a quick message and saying, hey, good job with the checklists, I have them all. Or you're missing Monday. So just two minutes like that really reinforces it for the employee. Now these checklists have a title field, which is the black bolded text, which is next to the check button, and then they also have a description field, which is underneath it. So I don't like checklists that are enormous, like they've got checklist items and then huge, even bullet-pointed paragraph descriptions in the description section. And the reason is the checklist isn't the training tool. It doesn't have enough information in it to fully explain to someone how to do that checklist item. It's just a reminder to do it. So this categorizes the existing client list. Up here in the work plan, there should be like a full description on how to do that, and there is. Here, it's just reminding the employee, do this, do this, do this. If the checklists get huge and people are having to navigate through, it just is more complicated. It's not as easy to use. So they're reminders. Did you do this? Make sure you did this. Any background to how to do that should live in the work plan. Now the checklists have this export tool, just like all the other tools, so you can export this to Word or a PDF, print it directly, and have these checked off manually, or they can do it inside a TouchStone. So here on the home page, on the control panel tool, there's a way for employees to log in and call up checklists and fill them out and save them back to TouchStone. So whether they're printed or done electronically, the checklists need to be completed or filled out. So let's talk about the system of the week here quickly. What I chose this week is basic, and it's time management. So at this point in time, when you're starting in on all your documentation, you're getting your employees involved, you're training them how to document, this question of we don't have enough time always comes up. It's the paramount question in creating a process-dependent business. We don't have the time. We're so busy with the tactical work, there's no time for the strategic work. Sometimes just considering how time is being spent and doing a few tweaks to kind of create a little bit more efficiency can help. If you can eke out an hour a day from each employee and from yourself, each manager, you're going to have a process-dependent business which is fully documented in very short order. Doesn't sound like that much time, or maybe it does, I don't know, but an hour a day is pretty easy to find when nobody's really focused on time management and efficiency. People waste hours a day all the time doing redundant things, doing inefficient things. So think about it this way. If you can eke out that hour a day somehow from even 5 employees, think about the amount of strategic, process-driven work you can do. Every process that's documented and implemented, that creates efficiency. We call it holes in the bucket. You start plugging those holes in the bucket, and your business becomes more profitable. So this is a basic time management exercise. I don't think there's any great fancy things around time management. I think there's fancy tools around time management for sure. But some of the basic principles of good time management are kind of tried and true. Covey, all the masters in time management all kind of are saying the same thing. So there's some work plans in this process on how to do activity logging, how to eliminate interruptions, and how to do daily planning. So good time management comes from, first of all, understanding how you're spending your time currently. And that's accomplished by doing activity logs. There's a time log down here, a template or form that can be used. And it can be used inside a TouchStone for that matter. So activities can be tracked when they're started, when they're ended, and what the total is. So tracking activities, here's a daily planning log. So there's some forms in here that are useful. These forms can be printed or they can be used in the control panel like I was talking about before. Doing some kind of activity logging is important. There are some professions that have to track all their billable hours because that's how you get paid. But this activity logging, I think, is not given as much credit as it should. Understanding what you do just by making simple jotted notes down every hour or so is really useful, because you can look at that at the end of the day and say, what was I supposed to do today, and what did I actually do, and why? This is a great management tool. A lot of times we can't quite, it's not visible what the employees are doing. So doing some kind of activity logging is useful. It doesn't have to be every day. It can be like once a quarter. You have people do activity logs for a week just so you can kind of see what they're doing or have them become conscious of what they're doing. In this Eliminating Interruptions work plan, it talks about some basic techniques for creating more efficiency. One that I think is super obvious is just how many times we check our email and how many times we're interrupted by phone calls. Certain positions can't avoid that altogether, but there are some basic things you can do to craft out a more efficient way to do communication. When do you check your email? How do you organize it so that you put less important things to the side and you're only looking at urgent things? How can we more utilize gatekeepers? How can you have certain hours of the day where you're answering phone calls instead of completely answering them every time the phone rings? As a manager, how can you eliminate interruptions by having specific times you communicate with your employees rather than having them walk in the door every 2 seconds, asking questions? So there's lots of great ideas in this Eliminating Interruptions. If some positions and employees who have never thought about this just do 1 or 2 of the things on this list, then that's going to create an hour a day, I guarantee it. With these activity logs, managers can then start to help their employees decide how they can be more efficient. Are they doing work they're not supposed to be doing? Are they being passed work that someone else is really supposed to be doing? Is something taking way longer than it should take? Does it need to be reorganized? Is there too much paper? There's all kinds of things like this that just you can see when you write it out. To do an activity log, it takes 10 minutes a day. That's it. So if anyone tells you, oh, the tracking of my time is just going to take too much time, it's not worth it, well, that's not true. Jotting down what you do every hour takes, and we've timed this, it takes 10 minutes in one day to do that, and the benefits are huge. Another thing is daily planning. So think about what's going to happen that day. This is a form for that. You can do this with an Outlook calendar as well. So you have a schedule or a calendar for what's supposed to happen that week. At the beginning of each day or at the end of each day, you look at what you have going on the next day. And using daily planning, you plan in the pre-scheduled things, so meetings that you have. You plan in high priority project tasks that you know you need to get done. And you literally say, I'm going to do that from 8 to 9, these high priority tasks, because I don't have any other appointments. I know I need to get back to certain high priority people. I'm going to put that on 10 to 12. So the act of deciding at what time of the day you're going to do these things creates efficiency. This is, and it holds you on track, because you can look at what time it is and say, oh man, it's 11 o'clock. I haven't even gotten to this thing I plan to do. Or this other thing has taken 3 hours and it was supposed to be 15 minutes. I'm going to set this aside for now. So you can make decisions like that, which again create efficiency. So read through this time management process. You can download it from the library. And consider some of it. Maybe you can't do all of it, but maybe there's a few things that can happen. Delegate it to your employees and say, hey, look at this and do a time log. Prioritize your day just for 1 week. Do it every day, and let's see if that helps. This is all about creating a new habit, and you don't form a habit until you do it over and over and over. So until you form the habit, it feels extra. It feels like a burden, but it just takes practice.